Welcome to the Let Good Things In show. I'm your host, Amanda Acker. I am so happy you are here. At the Let Good Things In show, we talk all about second chances, resiliency, following your intuition, and even music. Listen to hear stories of hope and to be inspired. Remember, you are stronger than you think. Let's dive in. Hi, my amazing humans. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am so excited to be bringing you my guest, Vince Warnock. He is an award-winning business and marketing strategist, coach, author, and host of the Chasing the Insights podcast. An ex-radio announcer with over 20 years in marketing, Vince has been recognized by his peers with numerous awards, including being named a Fearless 50, a program to recognize the top 50 marketers in the world who drive bold, fearless marketing and digital transformation. Previously the CMO at Cigna, Vince has founded multiple companies, including the Chasing the Insights Academy, which is awesome, where he empowers entrepreneurs and business owners to make sense of marketing and grow the business they have always dreamed of. Hey, Vince, welcome to the show.
Oh, hey, Amanda. I am so happy to be here. Honestly, you're literally one of my favorite human beings. So I'm just putting that out there now. But also, I'm so excited that you got your podcast. This is awesome.
Thank you. You're one of my favorite human beings as well. So to start things off, could you tell us a little bit about your past and how you got to be where you are today?
Yeah, sure. Well, once upon a time, no, I won't go back that far. I've been in and out of kind of entrepreneurship and corporate life for most of my career. So I've created and sold a number of businesses, then kind of transitioned to the corporate space. And it was, I'm forgetting how many years ago now, but I created probably my biggest company, which was Common Ledger. So that was an 8-figure company that we built very quickly and then sold off. And then I moved into corporate again to become the chief marketing officer at Cigna. And after doing that for 5 years and getting incredible results, honestly, we doubled the revenue of the business. I took online sales from about 2% of our revenue up to 48%.
Wow.
We were just getting staggering results everywhere, and everything we seemed to touch worked out, which was really nice, by the way. But despite all of that, I did realize at the end of the 5 years that I was feeling insanely unfulfilled. And you're in a company where when you're at a chief marketing officer level, you basically are owned by the business. So you work 24/7, in fact 48/7 if I'm honest. We had to create time, and you were just fully invested in this. And the challenge that gave me was it didn't give me time to do what I find really fulfilling, which is helping other people. And after publishing my first book, I spiraled into this weird kind of cycle of imposter syndrome, which I've always dealt with through my life. And coming out the back end of that, I knew I had to do something with it. I knew I had to write my next book, it's called Anti-Perfect, which I'm still working on. And I knew I had to help people with that. But I had no time to do it. So Christmas 2019 was a very awkward time, Amanda, because I had to have some very strange conversations with my CEO saying, I think I need to leave. And he was like, first of all, do we need to get you a counselor? Because are you aware of how much we pay you? And I'm like, yes, but it's not about that. And she was awesome and very supportive. And she tried to make it work and said, look, take some time off, or maybe you can work down to part-time so you can focus on the book. But all of these things only served me and didn't really serve them. And I felt really, I felt wrong about that. I felt that it didn't align with my ethics. So I thought, that's it. January 2020, I'm out of there. Peace. See you all. I'm going to focus on writing my next book. That was my entire goal. After about a week, that changed because I got bored, and now I'm writing 2 books. In fact, now I'm writing 3 books because I'm really selfish. And then COVID hit, and a lot of the people that I was interviewing for the book really struggled. And I mean, really struggled. They were like, look, we want to help you, Vince, but the reality is we have no revenue coming in at all. And we've got all the same overheads. In fact, we're looking at whether or not we exist in 2 months. And these were clients in the US, Canada, Australia, UK, New Zealand. And I just went, I can't do this. I can't stand by and let that happen. These are awesome people. I love entrepreneurs so much that I needed to help them. So I jumped in, boots and all, and said, look, let's look at how we can think different about this, and got them to look at different revenue streams within their business, how we can pivot or change things up a bit. And was very fortunate not to have a single casualty. Turned all of them around to profitable, even during a lockdown.
Wow.
And even doubled the revenue of 3 of them and tripled the revenue of another one, which was incredible. So that's what led me to where I am now, which was I found, hey, I'm accidentally a marketing coach. Who would have thought that? And then also launched my podcast, launched my academy program, and with just the goal to scale the work I'm doing and to try and impact as many entrepreneurs as possible. So there you go. That's the quick version, believe it or not, Amanda, of my story.
That's amazing, Vince. Yeah, I can definitely speak to your ability to really help and coach people in the entrepreneur space. You've helped me tremendously. So you're such an amazing human.
To be fair, Amanda, you are a dream student.
Oh, thanks.
Awesome.
But so were you always an entrepreneur? Like, when did you kind of figure out that was, what you wanted to do with your life?
Oh, wow. Yes. No, I came out of the womb. No, in all seriousness, I think I always knew, this is going to sound so random. I always knew I was different. I grew up in a very interesting household. I grew up in extreme poverty, and I grew up in an abusive household. So it was not a happy place at all. It was a place of extreme anxiety and stress and pain and all these kind of things. So for me, there was a part of me that always wanted to break free of that, even when I was a little kid. And I remember when I was 10. So when I was 10, my father used to work as a rubbish truck collector. So he didn't collect rubbish trucks. He worked on a rubbish truck collecting rubbish from commercial buildings. And it was back in the days, and it's going to show my age here, Amanda. It was back in the days where the first personal computers were starting to come out. And they had the Sinclair ZX81. It was a masterpiece of rubbish. It just never worked properly. It had a rubber keyboard, like the membrane was rubber, and it always got stuck and everything. And this company had bought a pile of them to look at whether or not they import them. 3 of them were faulty, so they just, tax write-off for them. They just trashed them. And my dad, he's not a very bright guy. He just went, computer things, these good. And he gave them to me. And I just looked at these as a 10-year-old and went, wait, I can make these work. So I pulled them apart and managed to fix 2 of them. And then sold those to like my friends' families, any of my friends that they wanted a personal computer. I managed to sell them to them. And that gave me enough money to buy a Commodore 64, the holy grail of personal computers back then. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to learn to do everything. I'm going to take over the world with this thing. So I had this Commodore 64, and I then discovered, and this is when I launched my first business, age 11, we're at this thing called intermediate. So it's a transitional school here in New Zealand where it's kind of aged 11 and 12. So before you go off to high school, after primary. So I'm there, and this company would come around and you could hire video games from them and software for the Commodore 64 and all these other platforms. It was like $1 a game. And I was like, oh my goodness, wait a minute. All of these games are based on cassettes. So they're all like ferrite-based things. So I'm like, well, ferrite-based cassettes can actually be copied. So I had no moral compass, so please don't judge me. I had nobody in my life that could tell me what was right and what was wrong. So I just discovered that I could get value from these things. So I copied all of these games, all of this software, and I would sell them. And I made a lot of money as an 11-year-old. And for me, there was a driving factor behind this, which was survival. Because at age 7, I was at home. My parents wanted to free up the room that I had because I had 5 sisters and a brother. We're all in a little, I think, 3-bedroom place. So it was like, okay, we want to free up some space. So they got this old rundown caravan with no insulation, no electricity, nothing, put it on the backyard and went, there you go, you're living in there now. So in winter, I would wake up with ice on my chest. It was just freezing cold. And I thought, I can't live. So I knew I had to fend for myself. So this business was my survival because the money I made from that, I did a pile of things, by the way. I blacked out the windows so they couldn't tell when I had light in there because there was no electricity. But what I did in the middle of the night, I got up, and my parents still don't know this, but I got out in the middle of the night and I dug a trench between the caravans. So I went under the caravan, dug this trench under the house and tapped into the mains there. I ran these wires and then covered them all up and everything, put the grass back on top of it. So I wired the whole caravan myself. So that way I could have electricity in there. So I could have a heater. So I bought myself a heater. I bought myself a TV. I bought myself a VHS because I love movies. And for me, it was my way of surviving. So throwing myself into all the kung fu movies I used to watch and all the sci-fi and fantasy was just a way of escaping the reality that was my life.
Wow, that's one heck of a story. I couldn't imagine at age 7 having to, kind of figure out how to survive, because I know
Yeah.
at age 7, I think I was playing Barbies. So I had there was no concept of that there when
Yeah.
I can remember being 7.
Yeah.
That's remarkable that you were able to figure that out at such a young age. It's sad too, but I think it's also admirable that you took the situation you were in and made it so that you could survive even at a young
Yeah.
age. You figured out, okay, what do I need to do to be warm? What do I need to do to entertain myself?
Yeah.
And what can I do to essentially avoid what you said, like what was actually going on around you? And that's,
Yeah.
a lot of us, even as adults, have a hard time doing those things.
Yeah. Well, I must admit, it was a strange feeling, Amanda, because like I learned a few valuable things. First of all, I learned that we're way more resilient than we realize we are.
Yeah.
Like if I had thought about dealing with those kind of situations, I would never have thought I could have done it. Especially as a 7-year-old or even as an 11-year-old trying to run a business, I would never have thought I would have been able to do that. But we are way more resilient than we give ourselves credit for. And I look at my background and my upbringing. I remember one time, actually, I was having a bit of a pity party one time. One of my very early businesses was hitting the wall. This wasn't my pirated video thing. I did shut that down, by the way. Every business I've had since then has been purely ethical, except one when I was at university, but we won't talk about that.
We won't tell.
Yeah. But no, like one of my early businesses was really struggling, and I knew that it was struggling because of me. And I knew it was struggling because of my own limitations I put on myself and my own self-doubt and all those kind of things that were creeping in. And I was having a pity party with a friend of mine, and he was a very wise guy. And he said something to me that really did change me. Now, I do think he only said it to me because he was really annoyed that I was having a pity party. He wanted me to shut up. But I remember saying to him that it's not fair. It's not fair that I had to grow up in the environment that I did. It's not fair that I didn't have a role model that could teach me how to be good with money, or teach me how to build a business, or teach me any of these things. It's not fair that I have to make all this up myself. And he just turned around and he said, you do realize, Vince, that everything you've gone through counts for something, eh? And it hit me like a brick. I'd never thought about it before. He said, look, the good things and the bad things, everything you have been through, every single thing, even the stuff I wouldn't wish on anybody else, all of this has actually helped to shape you into who you are now. And he goes, and I happen to think you're someone pretty special. And that's when I realized, yeah, actually, I am pretty cool. No, it made me kind of reframe all of that in my mind and go, yeah, look, it sucks that I had to go through that. It sucks that as a 7-year-old, you're fighting to survive, in the freezing cold, or you're having to adapt and learn all these things, or you're having to escape the reality that is abuse, and kind of check out into these fantasy worlds of comic books and Star Wars, which I love. But that was my happy place. So it sucks, all of that. But actually, it has taught me a huge amount of empathy towards other people. It's taught me to understand why people go through what they go through and try and be there for them as well. And I like that about myself. So that was a kind of pivotal point for me, is understanding that we are way stronger than we think we are. And despite going through that, the other thing, by the way, despite going through all of that and all the hardship that I went through, my wife went through way worse than that in her childhood. And I look at what she went through and I went, I would never survive. I would never have been able to get through that, yet she did. And then the two of us look at a friend of ours who passed away a number of years ago, but she went through like the trauma that she went through. When she started telling me one day, I had to leave the room and throw up. And I'm not kidding, like actually throw up. I cannot understand how a human being could endure so much pain and hardship and horribleness and things, yet she did. And no matter what situation you're in, even if it feels like it's the worst thing you've ever been through, you are more than capable of dealing with that, because we rise to that occasion. So I learned a lot of valuable lessons through all of that. I'd also learned that I don't want to be relying on anybody else. I don't want to be relying on a job, on a 9 to 5, on the corporate life. Even when I am in corporate, like I said, I've been in and out of corporate and entrepreneurship. Even when I'm in corporate, I've always got like a few side hustles on the go just to make sure,
Yeah,
I don't want to be
feel you.
beholden to anyone. Yeah.
Yeah. So much of what you said, like I relate to, like when you said about having that pity party, like I've definitely had that same pity party. Like, why did I have to go to jail? Like, why do I have, this history of abuse and, people mistreating me? And why did nobody, when I was a child, no one taught me, how to be an adult? I was left at 8. My mom left when I was 15. And my dad's not abusive, but he just isn't an emotionally available person. And that's just how he is. But at age 15, I needed that, and I didn't have it. So I also I had to navigate all these things, and I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of them, up until a couple of years ago, big mistakes. But like your friend said, all those things that, you, me, and everyone listening, what we've been through, it makes us who we are. We were meant to experience those things to be able to help others in the world know their worth and that you are stronger. And then the resiliency, oh my gosh, before going to jail, if someone would have said, Amanda, what would you do if you were in jail? I would have said, oh my gosh, no, eek. That's so scary. But then I got there and it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. Yeah, it was awful. But at the same time, I made it through. I was resilient. I figured out ways to escape my reality, just like you did as a child. I'm not this Bible God person, but the Bible, I would literally every day sit down with the Bible and just open it up randomly and read a verse out of the Bible, and I would journal on it and do these things because it took me out of what I was actually engulfed in. I no longer thought about that.
We are total twinsies, by the way. So I remember when I was, I can't remember the age because it was a long, long time ago. But when we were around 6 or 7, at school, they used to give out these Gideon Bibles. So it's I think it's New Testament, Psalms, Proverbs, that kind of thing, just condensed there for kids, essentially. And they give you out these things. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Seriously, I don't know what this is. I didn't grow up in a household with any kind of spirituality. The only spirituality they had was alcohol and drugs. That was their life. So I'm going, I don't know what this thing is. So I used to hide it under my bed. I got home and I thought, someone said to me, this is really important. And I'm like, okay. So I hid it under my bed and used to read that every night, just kind of sneakily read it. I had no idea what I was reading. It did put me in a weird headspace one time, though, because I read that God created every creature. And I'm like, okay. So then I was walking to school and I was like, wait, I can't walk on the dirt. If I walk on the dirt, I might be accidentally crushing like a worm. And that would be devastating. Then I'm like, okay, I'll walk on the footpath. And then I'm like, oh no, but what if my weight on top of the footpath puts too much pressure on the dirt underneath and accidentally crushes a worm? It's the stupid things that go through your head when you're a kid.
Right.
Looking back, it's adorable. But back then it was petrifying. I was like, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah. This is totally off subject, but when you're talking about being a child and not wanting to step on certain things, when I was a kid, remember that, I don't know if you've heard this when you were a kid, but if you step on a crack, you're going to break someone's back or whatever.
Oh, wow. Ours was step on a crack, you marry a rat. So,
no. Ours is a little bit more serious. And I literally would not step on cracks. I was so conscious of that for so long. I can remember it at the malls, crazy. But as kids, our minds are just, our imaginations they're beautiful though. I wish I still had that bright, shiny imagination like my daughter does. But
I love that so much.
Yeah. But anyways, but go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say there's something interesting in what you said before. Because you're talking about when prison, for example. And I talk about, with my situation. If I had thought about what I was going through before I went through it, I would never have thought that I could get through this, right?
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, I'm here. I'm alive. Mm-hmm. I'm thriving. I've been married to Leanne for 26 years. We have 2 incredible kids. We have the life that we hoped for, all of these things have come together for us. I have the most amazing clients ever. And I get to do really, really fulfilling work and things. And I have a podcast that I absolutely adore, So I would never have thought before all of the things I went through, or even during them, I would never have thought that I could get through that and I could get to where I am now. But hindsight is really, really wonderful. And for you as well, with going to prison, you would never thought you would have survived that. But in prison, you realize it's nothing like what I thought. Yeah. And so many times we trap ourselves in our own head and we paralyze ourselves. And not necessarily talking about on these larger scales of, abuse and things like that we've had to go through. But actually often we, like being an entrepreneur, for example, there are a pile of people that just go, hey, that's scary. I might fail. Yeah, you might. But you also might succeed. Have you thought about that? And also if you fail, so what? Just do it again. Try something else. Right? And then you'll succeed. You're not going to die. Seriously. But we get so wrapped up in the fear of it, not realizing that on the other side of that fear, that hindsight is usually, that was nowhere near as bad as I thought.
Yeah, so true. Like for me, like my entrepreneurial journey has been a huge, massive roller coaster. I had a VA business a few years ago and that sucked. So I stopped doing that. I'm like, well, that failed, and then I go back to a 9 to 5. And then I get out of the 9 to 5 and I'm like, okay, well, I want to be an entrepreneur again.
Yeah.
And I got certified as an online business manager and quickly realized, nope, that's wrong. So here I am
Yes.
trying again, because
Yeah.
I know that, my fears of telling my story, my fears of making a mistake, like all of that. But I have those fears, but I embrace them because I
Yeah.
know what's on the other side. And it's a beautiful place to be. I wouldn't be. And then when you think of the past, I wouldn't have this ability to share this hope and inspiration with people if I didn't experience those things.
Yeah.
In the moment, you don't see it that way. And it still sucks. I still have a lot of trauma related to a lot of things that happened to me, but
Yep.
I know the purpose of it now. Like, as our friend Marguerite says, sorry, I botched your name. You turn your turn your pain into passion or purpose,
Yeah.
pain to purpose, or it's something like that. It all makes
Yeah.
same thing. But like, and that's so true. Like, because now me and you are sitting here, we're alive. We survived like some of the things we wouldn't wish on our worst enemies. But we survived and we're here to share with the world. And that's beautiful.
It's more than beautiful. Like, yeah, it's one of the, it's like this. Honestly, I love being a coach. I never thought I'd be a coach, by the way. Like I said, I kind of accidentally fell into it. But the thing is, the more you get to stand with other people and help them, whether you're a coach, whether you're a healer, whether you're counselor, whatever it is, or anything, when you get to stand next to somebody and be there for them and help them, it is so genuinely fulfilling. That is far more. I was going to say happy. That's the wrong word. It's more happyizing than
I like that
than
word.
actually your own successes and things. Often, like I get so much more fulfillment from that than having a really good month or having really good profits coming in for a year or publishing another book or anything like that. So yeah, it's an incredible feeling. But that's because we've been able to get through what we've got through, and we can empathize with other people. We can understand. We can be there for them because we've experienced these things.
Yeah.
And a good example of that, Amanda, was, or the reverse of that was a friend of ours where, like, if anyone's going through addictions and things like that, or if they're going through abuse and things, I often can empathize with them because I've been through this. So I can often go, right, I understand some of the stuff that they'll be thinking and feeling, and I can get to stand in for them and things. But a friend of mine came to me and he was distraught. Him and his wife had been trying for a long time to have kids. And he was just like, okay, we're going to have to go through IVF. And it's just, like, it's really stressful. And what if it fails? It's a lot of money and all this. And I'm just sitting there looking at him blank.
Yeah.
And I was going, oh, wow. And I realized I've just got to think about kids and Leanne's pregnant. Like, we're going to be really cautious. We've never had a problem with that. And I realized I don't know what he's going through. I know it must be stressful and anxious. I don't know, there must be, like, I can picture and put myself in his shoes and go, maybe his feelings of I'm a failure, or I'm letting my wife down, or all these kind of things, and that desperation of wanting it, realizing that the clock's ticking. But I also realized I have no idea. I've never been through this at all.
Yeah.
So that was the one time where I was going, I was up front with them and said, look, I don't know what this is like. I've never experienced anything like this. I can understand this must be stressful. I'm there for you if you want someone to talk to, but also I highly recommend you find someone that's been through this before, because they can help you with the things that I would never understand and see. So yeah, it was super awkward though. I'm going, I have nothing, like, seriously. And then I was going to say to him, man, I just got to think about a kid and Leanne's pregnant. And I thought, that's not going to help him. That's going to make him
probably
even
not
more
the
depressed.
best thing to say. Probably not a good idea.
Yeah, I still remember, Leanne, we had planned when we first got married. It was about a year after we got married, I think it was. And Leanne, we were talking about kids, and I grew up in a big family. So I said, well, we want 7 kids. And Leanne's like, yeah, we want 5. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be cool. Turns out she didn't realize how painful childbirth is. So 2's enough.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, no, not fun at all. But the other thing too is we had planned to have it in like 7 years' time. We said we want all these things we want to accomplish before then. We want money because we were broke. We were too, when we first got married, we had no money. I was in a low job. Leanne was an early childcare teacher, and they get paid nothing. They get paid in goodwill, I think. So it was like, okay, like, we want 7 years from now. And then I thought she had the flu. She thought she had the flu, went to the doctor, and turns out, nope. No, universe had other plans for us. So there we go. So that's not going to help someone when they're going through IVF.
Yes, they're probably going to be like, and I hate you now. So thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I still remember going to a bank manager one time for a loan back when our daughter was first born. And I wasn't a loan, actually, it was an overdraft. Went to him for an overdraft and he goes, oh, you've got a newborn. And I said, yeah. And he goes, oh, mine's 2. And I said, oh, wow, cool. And he goes, oh, you've been having all the restless nights, sleepless nights. So I said, oh, no. She started sleeping right through the night from 1 month old. Oh. And he just turned around, he looked at me and he went, you dick. And I was like, whoa. I so thought he was going to decline my overdraft. He didn't in the end, which is really good. But the look he gave me, I was like, awkward.
Yeah.
Turns out his 2-year-old was still not sleeping through the night, which is problematic.
That's hard. Yeah, that's hard. Yeah. Kids are hard. But they're also awesome.
I talk to you, Amanda. We go from weird tangents.
I know. I don't know how we got here. But so let me think. Yeah, I wanted to talk more. I think we still have a little bit of time about the imposter syndrome, because you brought that up. And I think a lot of the listeners could benefit from hearing your insight on how to deal with imposter syndrome when it comes up.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, it's particularly if any of the listeners are entrepreneurs, then you have imposter syndrome. I'm just putting that out there. In fact, if you're human, you probably have imposter syndrome. I think the latest stats are around, depending on which research piece you read, it's either 72 or 78% of humans, like in general populous humans, actually deal with imposter syndrome at some point in their life.
Wow.
And for those that don't know what it is that feeling of, oh my goodness, I don't deserve what I have right now. Everyone's going to see through me. Everyone's going to know I'm a complete and utter fraud. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm making this up as I go along. And if you're an entrepreneur, then it's likely that it's about 100% of you actually have this, maybe 99%. There are some sociopaths out there, but most entrepreneurs deal with imposter syndrome. And I certainly have dealt with that through my entire life. And when you grow up in an environment like I did, when you grow up in abuse and you grow up in a place that's not safe, you do not want to stick your head above anyone else, because the moment you're noticed and you stick your head up, you basically get a beating. So you don't want to be in that environment. So this whole concept of a hope or a future or actually achieving anything, forget about it. And your brain will try and protect you in that. So I've dealt with this all through my career, and there's been a number of different times where it's really kind of come to a head. But one of the more recent ones really was around the publishing of my first book. And I struggled. I wrote the book relatively quickly, but the last part of the book took me forever. And that was just me procrastinating, by the way, going, if I finish this, people can read it, That's
right?
Awkward. Yeah. But I finally got it. I did it. I put it up, publishing date, got it ready and all this. And someone said to me, you can't do a book launch. Nobody does book launches anymore, Vince. No one goes to them, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you amateur. I'm a marketer. Hold my beer. So I organized a book launch and it was amazing. We had 100 or so people there back in the days where we could do face-to-face events. 100 or so people there, and they came from all over New Zealand, Australia, some of my peers in the industry, family and friends, the family I like and friends, all came to support me. And it was wonderful. And I had to kind of rationalize in my head. I knew that everyone's going to want a signed copy of the book, because that's kind of what you do when you go to a book launch. Yeah. But for me, that was a weird feeling. I was going, basically, people are asking for my autograph. Hello, I'm not famous. I'm not a entertainer. I'm barely average karaoke singer. There's no way anyone's going to want my autograph. But I knew if I went to a book launch, that's what I would want. So that's what other people. So I bought myself a fancy pen, turned up there, and I was signing all these books. And I didn't count on what people would say to me. And the majority of the people, every time I handed them the book, they said something along the lines of, oh, thanks, Vince. I can't wait to read this. And the moment they said that, my stomach knotted. And honestly, I started sweating. I started feeling horrible. I left the event just thinking, oh man, I should have been on a high. I'm a high extrovert. So everything should have been wonderful. It'll be like, go home completely energized. But I was freaking out. I went to bed and I couldn't sleep. And I just had all these internal conversations going on in my head going, who do you think you are, Vince? What makes you think you have any right to write a book? Like, what makes you think anyone wants to read any of this crap? Like, they're going to read it and they're going to think, what an amateur. And I got in my own head and I spiraled really, really quickly. And the next morning I made a decision, which I do regret, which was, okay, I don't want to talk about my book anymore. So that's it. So for 2 weeks at least, I decided that's off the table. I'll just put it out there. It was selling really, really well, which is good. It actually did really well. But I turned down interviews with Forbes, CIO magazine, and Entrepreneur magazine, and Diginomica.
Oh
and
my
said, look, I'm
gosh.
sorry, I'm too busy. I'm chief marketing officer at Cigna. I don't have time for doing these interviews. I totally had time for them. I was just feeling horrible. So turning them all down. And then it wasn't until one of my mentors called me up, and he never calls out of the blue, but he called me up and he said, look, Vince, how's the book sales going? And I told him, he goes, oh, that's really good. And I said, yeah. And then he goes, but I haven't seen any press out there. I haven't seen any social media. I haven't seen anything. You've kind of gone dark. What's going on? And I was like, oh man, I'm just really busy. I'm just relying on word of mouth. And he goes, yeah, I'm going to call you on that. That's just BS. And I was like, oh. And then he told me exactly what happens every time he publishes a book. And this is a guy who's like published, I think he's up to book 8 now, and they're all bestsellers.
Wow.
And every time he publishes a book, he goes through the exact same process I just did. And that was an eye-opener for me. It made me realize, A, I'm not alone, which is awesome. It made me realize I need to talk about this more. And we as a society and as entrepreneurs need to talk about this more. So I did a lot of study into what imposter syndrome is. And basically, the best advice I can give anyone dealing with imposter syndrome is to truly understand what it is. Because when you know what imposter syndrome is, which is your brain trying to protect yourself, it's going to change things. Because we have this fear of imposter syndrome. We think imposter syndrome is inherently bad. Guess what? It is not. Imposter syndrome is just signals from your brain trying to protect you. It's what you do with those signals that are the bad part. So that's the self-sabotage, the self-doubt, all those kind of things that cause you to take actions like turning down all those press releases that you're going to regret. Yeah. So when you understand that imposter syndrome is just your brain going, hey, Vince, guess what? You're outside of your comfort zone right now. You're stepped outside of your comfort zone and you're very vulnerable, and I want to protect you. So I'm going to use fear because it's a really good motivator. I'm going to use fear to get you back in here in the comfort zone. So your brain's trying to trick you and things. And often we just go back in the comfort zone and go, yeah, I want to hide.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, when we realize something else, which is that what happens outside of the comfort zone, outside of your comfort zone is where growth happens. It's where learning happens. It's where success, it's where prosperity, it's where breakthrough happens. It's where everything that we need as entrepreneurs and humans happens outside of our comfort zone. You don't get breakthrough when you're nice and comfortable. You get breakthrough when you're uncomfortable. So if our brain is telling us, hey, Vince, you're outside of your comfort zone, and we have a fundamental understanding that that's exactly where we need to be, then that's going to shift how we respond to imposter syndrome. Which is why I teach people, don't run from it, embrace it. Use it and go, okay, brain, what? Everyone's going to find out I'm a fraud. Everyone's going to find out I'm making things up as I go along. Well, first of all, guess what? I'm an entrepreneur. That's kind of what we do.
Right.
I've got no idea. We're birthing something new into the world. We've never done this before. Of course I'm making it up. But you just acknowledge it and go, okay, brain, look, I really appreciate you looking out for me. I really do. I appreciate you trying to keep me safe. But guess what? You're not needed right now. Right now, I know that I'm exactly where I need to be, and you're letting me know that, so I appreciate it. So that's the best advice I can give to every entrepreneur and every human, actually, is just to understand that imposter syndrome is not a bad thing. It's just a signal that you are in a period of growth. It is a signal that you are right where you need to be.
That's powerful. Yeah. After I heard you talk about imposter syndrome the first time you did a masterclass, I think in the 40-day challenge is when
That's
I heard
right.
your
Yeah.
whole masterclass on it. And I was like, wow, that's powerful, because I have imposter syndrome like you wouldn't believe. I literally wake up in the morning and go, and have no clue what I'm doing today. I guess that's cool. But, with your help and the support of my husband and other people in my little bubble that I have, I've really persevered and embraced that fear, because it's scary. But on the other side, I wouldn't have this podcast if I listened to my brain. I would not be doing this at all.
Well, and think about this other aspect as well, Amanda. Just think about how many people you would be denying impact if you didn't have this podcast and what you're doing. And think about all those people that have gone through exactly what you've gone through in their life and don't know that there's something on the other side of that. And you are that glimmer of hope that they need. But if we let imposter syndrome keep us in that safe space, they'll never see that. You will be denying people's success or breakthrough or happiness and all this because we're afraid. And that's not a good place. So when we make it about someone else, that's what I love about our brains. When we make it about somebody else and we realize that actually we're going to impact a lot of people, so we have to turn up, then our brains can focus on something completely different other than our own little insecurities and imposter syndrome and everything else.
Yeah, that's a great perspective to have. I could literally going to have you back because we need to continue this conversation. But Just one last question. Could you just tell the listeners today, what's your number one tip for them to be able to allow the good things into their lives?
I think one of the things you have to realize, like one of the things I would advise everybody to let good things into your life is to understand the value you add to this world. And to do that, I highly encourage everyone to do a concept I call the impact list. So it's actually just writing down a list of all the people in your life that you impact and how you impact them. And I'll tell you, when you first start this list, you'll come up with like 3 names. You go, okay, I impact my wife because I put food on the table for her, or I provide a safe environment where she can thrive, or I buy her lots of gifts, whatever it is. I don't care. Write it down on there. But you'll come up with about 3 people. The more you come back to this list, the more people you're going to add on. You'll add on, like I've got my neighbor in there because he had bung hip and it was pouring with rain one day and it was real icy. So I thought, I don't want him going out to take the rubbish out because it's going to be too dangerous for him. So I went and took his bins out for him. And that was a little thing. I didn't even think about it, to be honest. I just did it because I thought that would be nice for him. But it meant a lot to them. And that's the impact I had on them. And then I list down all my clients. I list down the people that I've helped. I list down the people that, the woman that broke down on the side of the road and I helped her get a car back together. Not that I know anything about cars, but I can ring AA really well. So all of these different things are the ways that you impact people. And then the people that are close to you and your family and friends and things. When you start to compile a list like that, you start to realize that every single one of us adds value in this world. Every single one of us has a place and has a purpose. And every single one of us are meant for great things. When you start to get that perspective about yourself, and it's difficult, I find it very difficult to do this, but when you do that, you start to allow those good things in because you realize, you know what? I have as much right to good things as everybody else. I have as much contribution to society as anybody else. And I've got as much right to be on this planet as anybody else. People need me. And yeah, that's a good thing. So just write down an impact list, write down the name of the person. If you don't know their name, just put random person on the side of the road that I helped. Then write down what their needs was and then how you help them meet that need.
Yes, definitely do that. I've been a bad coaching client because I have not done mine yet, but definitely do that because, even though I don't have it written down, I can, when I am feeling, down ever since you told me about that. And I think about, well, who have I impacted? I'm like, okay, I'm good. I got this. I can do this. So yeah. But thank you so much for being here, Vince. It's been so much fun having you.
No worries. I'm just impressed with myself because there's so many different tangents I wanted to go off, Amanda. I love talking to you. So it'd be like, this is going to be like a 5-hour episode. So to keep it this disciplined, that is pretty impressive for me.
Yay. Awesome. And just as a reminder to everyone listening, just remember that you are stronger than you think and you can have the life you imagine having regardless of your past. Also, make sure to hit that subscribe or follow button so you don't miss an episode of the show, and I will talk to you all soon.